Hey everyone, today is World String Change Day at DAddario, and they asked me to make a video going through my process of changing strings and showing off my strings of choice. Now listen, I've been using DAddario strings way before I ever became an artist, which was in 2018. I used to even be proud of how many sets of DAddario strings I went through as I was practicing all day and every day, and I never found a better set of strings that were more consistent, that lasted as long as they do. And now the strings I'm about to put on my guitar, which has old strings on it right now, are their latest and greatest, which are their XTC 45 FF strings, which have an extended life coating on them. I have not noticed it to affect the sound in a negative way, and they do last longer. These have the carbon trebles, but I switch out that first string with a nylon first string. This is just a single DAddario Pro Art normal tension first string, and I'll talk a little bit more about how I came to this combination as I go ahead and detune this guitar and put on a fresh set of strings. First things first, when I change my strings, I always put something underneath the bridge here to protect the top in case when I'm tying the strings I mess up and one of them slips. I just use a doubled business card here with a piece of painter's tape, and I go ahead and tape it to the bridge. It's not the most beautiful look, but it protects the guitar well. So I'll go ahead and start detuning my strings with my DAddario string winder. Quick tip, if you loosen these up with a screwdriver, there's a screw right at the top here, then they spin a lot more freely, and I like that because I can change my strings faster. So I've been using DAddario strings for a very, very long time, and I've been through many different set preferences. For a long time, I was a nylon purist, and then once DAddario introduced their carbon strings, I converted pretty quickly. And I used purely their set of EJ45FF, which is their carbon treble Dynacore bass set of strings, for quite a long time until I started to really miss the sound of nylon on the first string. And I find that, at least for me, that nylon first string makes it feel a little bit more natural of a singing voice. That being said, I do think that there is an adjustment period because there's a slight difference in sound between the carbon and nylon, and it takes a little bit of time to let your fingers adjust to that, but I think once you do, it's a superior sound, at least in my opinion, for most of my guitars. Now the question always comes up, why did you choose the DAddario strings? And, truthfully, when I was first trying out all different sets of strings and kind of learning about all the different sets that were out there, the DAddario were the ones that were most consistent for me. They were reasonably priced, and they are strings that just sound great on almost every guitar. There is something to be said about picking strings for certain guitars, and I have done some of that. But DAddario seems to be the most consistently great. And there's another factor here, which I think is rarely talked about, and that's just the feeling of the strings under your fingers. Not necessarily the sound, but the feeling. And with DAddario strings, I find in the right hand, especially using nails, of course, like I do and many classical guitar players do, that they don't create as scratchy of a sound as other brands' bass strings. And that really matters when you're playing things on the bass strings that isn't just with your thumb, but using your I and M finger. So anyways, I'm not going to get all into the depths of how exactly I change my strings here, but a basic principle is that I overlap the string that I'm winding over the excess of the strings. This helps it become really nice and tight without it being able to slip back through the hole. The guitar that I am restringing right now is made by Martin Blackwell, and it's a double top guitar. He's a Canadian luthier and one of my favorites. Now I'm going to move on to the A string here, and I typically only change 3 strings at a time. I feel that changing all 6 strings at once is quite a shock for the guitar, and also it's a kind of a pain to tune all of the strings up after you put on a brand new set of strings. Now, there's another question of string tension. Normal tension, high tension. There's even low tension and extra high tension. For me, normal tension works best on my guitars and for my hands. It is true that with a high tension string, you might be able to push a little bit more and have the frets buzz a little bit less. But I feel like it's just usually not worth the compromise. The sound is just a little bit tighter. And the thing is, for certain guitars, it might be worth it to give that a try. But for me, my personal preference is their normal tension, which is easily identifiable with their red packaging. The blue packaging, for instance, is their high tension string. So you can always spot that no matter the set, whether it's their X series or their normal series of Pro Arts. So I am stringing up the 4th string right now. And yeah, I'll just say that those normal tension strings typically sound a little bit more loose and relaxed. And I strongly prefer that. When I am tuning up these strings as I am winding them, one thing that I like to make sure to do is to get them close to being in tune right from the get-go so that they begin stretching, their whole stretching process, right? Because strings take several days to fully stretch in. And that's also why I like changing 3 strings at a time, because you can compare them to the top strings without constantly checking with the tuner, right? So here's the E's compared. And then the A. And the D is way out because I haven't gotten close with that one. One funny thing about me when I change strings is that I really like all of the ends of the strings to face downwards after. I don't like them sticking out like this, so I put them back through and make sure they are out of my way. So see, I'm close to in tune already. And now I said I usually only change 3 strings at a time, but let's go ahead and change the set of trebles too, because I do think it's been a while for this guitar. Now, treble strings last a lot longer. This is for everyone. The basses over time, if you play a lot of guitar, will wear down, but especially these new X series by DAddario last a super long time. But the trebles always last longer. I think it's an underrated set of strings to change more often because they do have more glow and sparkle and presence when they're brand new. And I'm always surprised at, just how amazing they sound when you put on a brand new set of strings. Now the question comes up a lot, how often should I change my strings? Now I really believe there's no set amount of time. It all depends on how much you play guitar. If anything, there should be a number of hours rating for how often you should change your strings. But when I am playing one guitar very often, like practicing hours on just one guitar, I have to say I change my strings in that situation maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. At one point in time, when I was practicing 9 or 10 hours a day, I mean, it wasn't real practice, let's face it, but I was playing a whole lot every single day. Then I would change my strings almost every single week, which I know for a lot of people that's a ridiculous amount of time to change your strings in, and does get very costly, but that's exactly what I did then. Nowadays, I probably change my strings every few weeks, and mostly for the purpose of keeping me happy and inspired, because new strings bring so much happiness. I mean, the sound of the guitar is so much better. The strings are no longer scratchy from your nails. They just have this brand new feeling to them. And sound is like you got a brand new guitar. That's what's so cool about it. Now on the treble strings, I usually do 2 or 3 wraps and make a little knot down at the bottom to make sure I don't slip. And I am on the 3rd string here. And I guess you will truly see how long it takes me to change my strings, which I have to say I am normally pretty fast at this, usually taking me 8 to 10 minutes if I needed to do a full set. Now, I mentioned a little bit about consistency of these strings. DAddario, of all the strings I've used over time, DAddario has the most consistent strings. And what really sets them apart is in the area of intonation. Now, intonation is basically how in tune your guitar is as you travel up the fretboard. And if that is off, even by a little bit, it's something that drives me crazy. And a lot of times I think folks have a hard time pinpointing exactly what it is or what string it is that's throwing them off. But there are some string brands out there that are really quite bad with intonation. And unfortunately, a lot of people just never notice. They just think it's something wrong with their guitar. Maybe they need to go get it adjusted. And for some brands, this quality of intonation differs from pack to pack, from batch to batch. DAddario somehow has done it so well over the years that I just don't worry about it. I mean, my first instinct is something's wrong with my guitar if I change my strings and there's an intonation issue. So again, I am getting this up to tension. So see, I look for that perfect fifth between E and B. And of course, the strings stretch a whole lot after the first day or two of playing them, and that is totally normal. Now I just got here to my single Pro Art normal tension, EJ45. So this is a normal tension, completely nylon string. And this is just my preference for the first string. I think it is just a little bit rounder and warmer and a little bit more of a singing tone. And it's something that I've grown to really like. But you know, I have to tell you, whenever you change strings to a new type, whether it's a new brand or a new material, like going from carbon to nylon or nylon to titanium or whatever the situation is, there's always an adjustment period, I believe, not only for your hands, but for your guitar and also your ears. So, you know, you can imagine you get so used to playing one type of string that when you swap to another type of string, sometimes your initial reaction is like, get this out of here. This is so unfamiliar. But I really do think you need to give things time. You need to give the strings time to stretch. You need to give your fingers time to adjust to the new strings, and also for your guitar to adjust to the new tension. Because, for instance, going from carbon to nylon would be a great reduction in string tension. So that's a lot of less pounds of force being pulled on your bridge. And of course, going from nylon to carbon, that's a lot more pounds of force on your bridge. So see, what I'm doing here is I'm checking the first string, then the second. I'm just turning that to a fifth, E to B, and then checking that. And see, if I just do this a few times, the guitar will actually end up being very close to being in tune. And then at this point, I usually set the guitar on a hanger and I put it back because I like to let the strings rest and stretch for a little while before I go ahead and get started playing, because they do take time to stretch. But I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a little bit about my string changing process and my favorite pack of strings for so many years now. I mean, gosh, it's been more than 15 years that I have been choosing DAddario strings. Lastly, thank you so much to everyone at DAddario, really making us feel like family as artists. As you can see, I go through quite a lot of strings, so the support is so appreciated. And that's really one of the best things about being with DAddario, is that they make you feel like family and you get connected to such a wide group of musicians and artists, whether it's violinists, cello, a bass guitar, electric guitar. You know, it's not just all classical guitar strings. It is so many different instruments. Shoot, even woodwinds, because they have reeds that they sell and they have woodwind artists. It's such a cool thing. It's such a great network to be a part of. So thank you to the team at DAddario. Thank you all for watching these videos, and I will see you in the next one. Happy World String Change Day, and go get changing your strings with your favorite set of DAddarios.